Hi everyone, hope you all are doing really well. So this is the new video on API testing interview questions. So these are very important questions. So if you're coming into the bracket of 2 to 4 years of experience, those API automation is also a different topic, but APIs itself is a big subject. I think in an interview that has been categorized because it will be giving you the, you know, a good rainbow or a good if you know the APIs, right? Interview will also scale you on many things. If you're average in Java and you're good in Selenium and you're good in APIs, your chances will get for the selections will get increased. But at least you should be knowing APIs, like the subject of APIs, the basics of APIs. If you know the APIs, you can learn the API automation easily. API automation does not have tests, but API itself is a big subject to understand what all APIs work, how API is working, and right now everything is a one click away, and there are APIs which we are dealing with every day in day out. So APIs are a very important aspect. So don't miss out this topic. So understand about the APIs. So those who are watching my video on the very first time, so there are many series going on for Selenium coding and for the project explanation. Those are one of my best videos. I think people are liking it, and those are really helpful if you're preparing for your interview. Go ahead and check those channel, and guys, please like or comment or anything. I need that sort of motivation to be consistent, and I'm trying to be consistent. I'm trying, but I think from your end I'm not getting those motivation, those comments. I just hardly get one or two. That were in like in one or two videos. I think many people are watching it, but I think they want it to be their bit actually. So I'm expecting at least a live so that I'll get motivated to make more videos on it. So okay, for an introduction, okay, let's go ahead with the topic and understand. So what is API? So an API is an application programming language, is a software intermediary that enables two applications to communicate with each other. It comprises a number of subroutine definitions, logs, and tools for creating application software. So in an API testing interview, you could be asked to give some API examples. So here are well known: Google Maps API, Amazon Advertising APIs, Twitter API, YouTube API, etc. So before, like many people ask, just say that I'm just reading the, this PDF, but I'll be giving you the pictorial representation or maybe explaining more about the API with the examples in the coming slides. So first we'll also reading what are the main difference between API and the web services. So all web services are APIs, but not all APIs are web services. So web services might not contain all the specifications and cannot perform all the tasks that API would perform. So we'll have a more detailed description of this one, but I'm reading this. So web service uses only three style of like SOAP, REST, and XML RPS. So for communications, where an API may be exposed in multiple ways. So both of them are used for communication purpose, like taking the information from one place and from one place to another. That is how it is, from one system to another. That is how APIs work. Whether it is taking the request or whether it is taking the response, it is the both request and the response being happening with the help of APIs only. So a web service may also need a network to operate, while APIs does not need a network for operations. Okay, so it does require, like for example, web services, like you need to connect a VPN, right? That does required your network, internet is required to connect, or like when you have a VPN, you will be prompted to password. So that is through, like when you put the password, it will again do the verification via APIs, and it does not require any, what we say, any password in terms of your request or response. So from the response from the server, it does require. So APIs, when you do Selenium thing, right? So you will run it, right? You will run it, it will, but you will not get the response. In the response, you will get at least 404 not found or 500 internal servers error, but your APIs runs, right? So that kind of APIs work. Just giving you the basic example. Maybe we'll understand more into the detail in the upcoming video. Okay. So this is the API structure, what we have it. So here we have user, we have mobile or desktop, we have internet, we have API, we have server, and we have database. So what happens is, like for example, this is the basic structure which you have to divide, do it, and you can explain what I'm explaining. So for example, you are searching a flight. Okay. So you are going for any flight, or you're searching or any flight, okay, so you'll be using any MMT for example. So you'll be searching any flight from Delhi to Goa. Let's say you're searching it for the 24th June, okay. So these all information, when you hit on search, all these information via API, it will go to, like, all those you have from mobile or desktop, whatever you have done it requires internet, or and then it will go to APIs and connect it with server, and then it will connect it with the database. Database is also connected with the server. So what happens is, in the server, again the request will go to the database and it will fetch out all those informations which I've put in. So in the response, you will see in the screen the flight details and what all flight details are there, and the timings of the flights and the prices of the flight. Okay. And what happens is, all the airlines feed their data into that flight database. Okay. And how it is happening. So you will not get for all the days. You will only get the details based on 24th June. So 24th June is your filter criteria, where date equals to 24th June. So you will also get the only get the response of 24th June. In 24th June, this is all flights are available for 24th June. That is how it is. So June or July, whatever date you are putting. So that's how APIs work. So based on your questions, you will get the response or the answer from the API itself. Okay. Now, let's go from investments. We have to go to the first question. So to understand the third question, so what are the limit of API uses? So many APIs have a certain limit set up by the provider. Thus, try to estimate your usage. Try to estimate the usage, or understand how that will impact the overall cost of the offerings. Whether there will be a problem depending on the large part and how the data is leveraged, getting caught. Like limit of API users, so it is a limited, you cannot use it. So based on the users, we will be buying the APIs. Okay, these are the APIs we will be needing and we will be creating into the server. And because you will be buying the server for like how many APIs you can host there. So in the server, if you buy, because server is nothing but a space, so that is again a different topic. So server, you will be buying it. Okay, so you will be buying a server. So in that, how many APIs you can host it, you can limit it. Okay, this is like 10 APIs. 12 APIs server I needed. Okay, that is all that. We will be also having understanding this video, this one, that how it is be like several server hosting the web service. So there's a server which hosts the like this is also like client. We will be talking about client and server. So client is nothing but a we. We will be putting the details and we will be sending a request to the server, and from the server we will be getting a response, and the the medium is that we'll be using internet as a medium. So server also hosted many of the web service which does not have like post or this the actions and operations are not there, but the data is there in the form of web services. So this is REST API. We're gonna understand more about REST API. So I'll just put in the slide. Maybe we'll have the explanations from the REST API. So via quota and effectively cut off because of the budget limitations will render the service like that is one limit usage which we had discussed. So what is the architectural style of creating a web API? So this is one of the fundamental web API interview questions. Below are the 4 common web API architectural styles. HTTP for client server communication, XML JSON as a formatting language, simple URI as the address for the service, and stateless communication, statelessness communications. So that's how it is being used. Okay, so what the architecture of a web API, dogs, third party. So who can use a web API? So web API can be consumed by any clients which support HTTP verbs such as get, put, delete, post. Since web services do not require any configurations, though they can be easily used by any client. In fact, even portable devices such as mobile devices can easily use web API, which is undoubtedly the biggest advantage of this technology. Okay, so like we just understand about the web API, wherein you will be having a get, put, delete, post. These are the operations which is being performed by APIs. So we're gonna discuss more about it, and then the diagram also for the REST API. So again, there is a top API interview questions. So what are the advantages of What are the advantages of API testing? I was just saying about this, like the same questions being repeated. In an API, they are likely to ask about the advantages of API testing. So be prepared with the significant ones like test for core functionality, time effective, language independent, easy integration with the GUI. So API testing provides access to the applications without a user interface. The core code level of functionality of the application will be tested and evaluated early before the GUI test. So this will help detect the minor issues which can become bigger during the GUI testing. Then time effective API testing usually is less time consuming than GUI testing. The web elements in GUI testing must be pulled, which makes the testing process slower. Particularly API test automation require less code so that it can provide better and faster test coverage compared to GUI test applications. This will result in cost saving for test project. Then we have a language independent. In API testing, data is exchanged using XML or JSON. These transfer mode are completely language independent, allowing user to select any code language when adopting automation testing services for the project. Then again, easy integrations with GUI. So API tests enable highly integrable tests, which is particularly useful if you want to perform by quota or effectively cut off because of the budget limitations will render the service or any system design process is virtually useless. What are some architectural style for creating web API? So this is one of the fundamental, I think we use this. This being I don't know this now we have this one is functional GUI test after API testing. For instance, simple integration would allow new user account to be created within the application before a GUI test system. Now, some common protocol used in API testing. Many protocols are now available to be used in API testing, such as JMS, REST, HTTP, UDDI, and so on. So what is the test environments of API? So setting up the API test environment is not an easy task. So you should have already answered if you have an API test interview coming. So test environment of API is a bit complete and the requires configurations of the database server depending on the software requirements. So no GUI, like GUI means graphical user interface, is available in this test form. The application process is complete. API is verified for the proper operations. Throughout the process, the API is called. API is verified for the proper operations. Throughout the process, the API called from the original environment is set up with different parameters to study the test results. So, what are the principles of an API test design? The 5 most important principles of an API test design are setup, execution, verification, reporting, cleanup. So, setup, create object, start service, initialize data, etc. Execution steps to apply API for all the scenarios including login. Verification, oracles to evaluate the result of the execution, reporting pass, failed or blocked. Cleanup, pre-test state. So this is the principle of API test design. So you will be doing setup, execution, verifications, reporting, and the cleanup. So this is how you will be doing. So in the setup, you will be start servicing, initialize the data. That is not your thing, but you have to know that setup, execution, login, verification, reporting, and cleanup. These are the principles of API testing. So here's another question which is very important. What are the common API testing types? So while there are certainly specifically specialty tests and no list can be asked to be comprehensive in this, so most tests fit broadly into the following 9 categories that you should remember before attending API. Validation testing, functional testing, UI testing, row testing, runtime error detection, security testing, penetration testing, fuzz testing, interoperability, and WS compliance testing. What is the procedure to perform API testing? So choose the suite to add the API test case, choose the test development mode, demand the development of test cases for the required API methods, configure the control parameters of the applications and then test conditions, configure the method validations, execute the API test, check test reports, filter API test cases, arrange all the API test cases. So when you do the perform, how you will do that? Like you have, if created the test plan, under that you will create the API test cases, whatever API test cases you will do it. You choose the development mode, choose the test development mode, okay? Like you can also ask the like data for your API, right, from the developer development of the test cases for the required API thing, and configure the control parameters. So how you wanna have the parameters into the APIs, method validations we will be configure, right? Like you will put whatever you will be doing, passing the URLs, you will passing on the data. Like if you have a post, you will be setting up, then execute it, and then you will check the API reports, and then you will check your test cases are passed or fail. You will do that. So what we must be checked when performing the API testing. During the API testing process, a request is raised to the API with the known data. The way you analyze the validation response while testing an API, you should consider accuracy of data, like how accurate your data is, like whatever input parameters you have been given, what all output data you are getting in the form of JSON, you will be doing the accuracy of the schema validations. Also, you will be doing HTTP status code, how what all status code you are getting. So if you are passing a valid data, you will be getting 200. If you are passing invalid data, so what it will be 400 bad requests, like format of the data if you're sending, like if you are passing a valid data but that data is not there in the server, you will be getting 404 not found. So I think these kind of 4x series, you will, if you're passing the same data again and again, you will get 409 conflict. So those all things you should be getting. So like you see that there will be certain set of data set, okay, you will be again and again doing it or creating. For example, if you're doing a post and if you have created like XYZ account, and again you are creating XYZ, so you will get 409 because that data is already there, that data is already present, so you cannot create the duplicate data there. So that's kind of data you will be seeing. Data type, validations, order and completeness. So you will get the like what all details you should be getting into the payload, like what all payload details I'll be getting into the response, the same response you are getting it or not, that is also you will be validating. You will do the authorizations checks. So what all authorizations is there? Like for example, if you have cookies or anything is in that cookie or received or not, what all validations it is required to connect. If you have fed proxy server, all those things you should check. Then implement of the response, timeout time, implementation. So how, like you should also see like within which time, like how much time it will take to give you the response time. Error code in case of API returns. So API returns, how like error code I've just explained. Non-functional testing like performance security testing. So that is something which you can give it. What is the best approach method to perform API testing? So defining the correct input parameters. So what are the parameters you are passing it? You can, what if your query parameters or you just have the parameters in the form of payload it is going, how the parameters are going to just check it in your request. Then you verifying the calls of the mixture of two or more added values parameters, defining the basic functionality in the scope of the API program, writing appropriate API test cases and making use of testing technique such as equivalence class, boundary values, and etc. to check the operability. Testing case executions, comparing the test, like you will also appropriate test cases you will be writing it, right, and you will have all the equivalence, everything is being done. Testing case execution, you will see a testing case like test case execution, you will check comparing the test result with expected result, actual or the expected result comparison you will be doing, verifying the API behavior under conditions such as connections to files or so on, like if there is something missed out. So what all tools are we using? You will use Postman for that. Postman is the best tool, guys. You just try the Postman. Postman is the best. If you want, you can try. Like for the automation, we'll be having a different. So yeah, I think we don't have. I thought we will be having a REST API, so we will cover REST API later, guys. I'm like first, I cannot continue talking like endlessly. So maybe for the REST API, which diagram you have seen it, maybe I will explain it in the later interview questions. That I'll keep a mind of that. And I request you to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching it out. And I know there were a lot of noises. They were like my garbage collector also comes in between. I cannot, um, stop the video in between or go it because I am using some recording tool. Which if you stop, it is no pause thing. So I'm really sorry for all the disturbance whatever come in. But stay tuned for my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and yeah, all the best. Bye.